The St. Walburg District John Doe, identified as Jose Geraldo Valdez. We begin with this case on November 14th, 1997. On this particular Friday, some locals were out walking along the North Saskatchewan River in Canada. The residents were walking in an area between Lloydminster and St. Walburg when they found a human skull. They would quickly alert the authorities and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The coroner's office would eventually state they weren't sure if the remains belonged to a woman or a man, although they would be listed as male when the sex is required. This is done by default in many jurisdictions. The University of Saskatchewan Department of Archaeology would examine the skull, and they would say it was a 35 to 40-year-old person of Native origin. This case is being investigated by the Office of the Chief Coroner and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So they began searching for more remains and probably some answers, and they found additional remains that would later be confirmed to also be our John Doe. They would state they belonged to an Aboriginal man or woman aged 35 to 40, and this person had likely passed 3 to 5 years prior. These particular remains were projected to have traveled the bank of the river from Alberta. The police would offer a sketch of our John Doe based on the unidentified skull, although I was unable to find this actual sketch, which isn't particularly unexpected. This was 1997. Not everything's digitized. In this case, they did take his DNA in 1997 and processed it. However, of course, these tests require a one-on-one match. They would run it through the criminal database and look for anyone who had donated their DNA because they were missing someone. But with no more leads, they had pretty much hit a brick wall. However, a cold case detective in Edmonton would match our John Doe with a missing person case. Jose Geraldo Valdez was just 36 when he went missing in 1990. I wish there was more information. I feel like Jose deserves a celebration of his life. But all I can tell you is that the authorities would say his death appears natural. But this is only because his skull did not show his COD. His family did release a photo, but with the details of his disappearance not given, there wasn't much fanfare on the case. Jose Geraldo Valdez was a missing person for 7 years before his remains were even found. So his family had been missing him for 35 long years, leaving him as an unidentified John Doe for 27. Had Jose Valdez lived, he would be 71 years old today. The Gastonia Jane Doe, identified as Angela Burris. This case begins on April 19, 2021. It was a rainy day in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. Angela Burris was 36 and a mom when she was last seen for the last time on that rainy day. Witnesses would spot her getting into what is described as a black passenger car near her home on Lake Montonia Road in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. This would mark the last day of normalcy for Angela's daughter, Katira, who is shown here holding her own daughter. Both Katira and her child were missing their mom and their grandmother. They were unable to come up with any leads at all as to what happened to her. It was not like her to disappear, and she had seemingly just disappeared. But she had to have gone somewhere, and they struggled to try to figure out where that was. There would be no leads until almost 1 year after Angela disappeared. In April of 2022, remains were discovered on Sunday afternoon near Catawba Creek, which is located behind Ferguson Park. A group of men were hanging out in the area looking for baseballs that they had hit out of bounds. Instead, they found human bones. One of the men was quoted as saying, "I could look right here and I could spin in a circle and I could see bones surrounding me all around." It was at that point that they called 911. And this profoundly affected the men themselves. They found themselves frantically searching online on their phones for missing persons from the area, desperately hoping to find a clue as to who they had found. As for her remains, there were no signs of visible trauma at all to the bones. The only thing they were able to say is that the bones appeared to be that of an adult. A newspaper would say that the police were hopeful about the DNA, but then it would turn out that the DNA wasn't originally processed. The The next thing to happen would be a search to find Angela being done by the police. At this point, Angela was gone for 2 years, and her family was extremely desperate for answers. The Kings Mountain Police Chief, Gerald Childress, would say that a lead had taken them to Mountain State Park. This was a wooded area off of a private road. Dozens of people would pitch in, tirelessly searching around 20 acres of land in hoping to find her, but to no avail. The reasons behind them taking so long to search for her isn't given. The reason her DNA hadn't been processed isn't given, but probably there's a backlog due to testing costs. The break in this case would happen in early 2025. It was then they would confirm what was described as distinctive features found on the remains found in Gastonia. It was then that they were able to confirm what they had suspected all along. The remains found in that creek bed did, in fact, belong to Angela Burris. Obviously, this just leaves more questions to be answered. Her daughter has since had a baby of her own who will never know her grandma Angela. And Angela was everything to her daughter, and that daughter desperately needs to know who did this to Angela. No one even knows the COD. Nothing in her remains rules out accidental passing or whether there was foul play, but it's definitely suspicious. As mentioned earlier, she was seen getting into a black passenger car near her home on Lake Montonia Road in Kings Mountain. There's very little to go on, and they just desperately need someone to come forward if they have any idea whose car she got into or what happened. Her daughter would say her story isn't finished. There are some things I need to know about how she got there. She was the soul of our family. Please help Katira and her family find those answers. Angela Burris was missing for 3 years and 11 months. Had she lived the life she deserved, she would be a 40-year-old doting grandmother today. The Marion County John Doe, 1990, Ocala, Florida. So many unidentified people meet a sad fate after being hit by a motor vehicle. I've seen so many of them when I'm covering stories, and this one is no different. This happened on November 18, 1990. This is around 10 miles north of Ocala, Florida. Our John Doe was struck on I-75 just a few feet south of the overpass. It's possible this indicates he was hitchhiking and he could be from anywhere. They gave a wide age estimate of 25 to 50. He was described as having an identifiable face, although there are no post-mortem photos that I could find. He could have been born anywhere from 1940 to 1965. The family missing him would remember him as tall, around 6'5" or 196 centimeters. He was really thin for his height, however. He weighed only 152 pounds or 69 kilograms. His eyes were hazel and he had a small beard. He had numerous scars, and the details are written on the screen. This included his right upper thigh, 2 on his right forearm, and several on his fingers. He was either wearing or had with him tan jeans, 3 sweatshirts, a blue shirt, 2 jackets, and white tennis shoes. He had 3 $1 bills. They noted he had no tattoos and he'd been circumcised. If anyone has any information, please come forward on this case. The number is listed on the screen. The Marion County John Doe, 1990, has gone unidentified for 35 years.
Huge thanks for watching all the way to the end, and a big thanks to all of you who consistently like and comment on the videos. Whether you leave a full comment or an emoji, it makes a huge difference. So if you consistently watch my videos, maybe take a moment to subscribe. It's a huge push toward the videos being suggested to new people. The next goal is 20,000. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other.